Welcome to another episode of ResearchPod. Today, we're looking at how virtual characters in games and simulations navigate crowded spaces, and why getting that right is harder than it sounds.
The puzzle is this. While it's relatively straightforward to make a character walk from point A to point B, it's genuinely difficult to make them squeeze through a narrow gap or sidestep a tight corner without their body clipping through walls or their feet sliding unnaturally. The paper we're discussing introduces a system called environment-aware motion matching, which tackles exactly that problem.
So the issue isn't just pathfinding, it's that the character's body doesn't actually know it has a physical size.
That's the heart of it. Most animation systems split the job in two. One part plans the route, and a separate part plays the animation. The trouble is, those two parts don't talk to each other properly. The route planner says go left, and the animation layer just plays a walking clip, with no awareness of whether the character's shoulder is about to pass through a door frame.
It's like giving someone directions over the phone while they're walking through a crowded market. You can say turn right, but you can't tell them to duck under the low beam.
Exactly. And that disconnect is what produces the visual glitches players notice. Feet sliding, limbs passing through geometry, bodies that look like they're being teleported rather than moving. The fix this paper proposes is to make the animation selection process itself aware of the physical environment.
How do they actually do that?
They represent the character's physical footprint as a simple flat shape, specifically an oval or what mathematicians call a 2D ellipse. Think of it as a personal space bubble drawn around the character's feet. Every time the system is about to pick the next animation frame, it checks whether that oval would overlap with any nearby obstacle.
So it's like the system is constantly asking, if I play this animation, will this oval end up inside a wall?
Precisely. And if the answer is yes, that animation gets a penalty, a high cost that makes the system avoid it. The system naturally gravitates toward animations that keep the oval in clear space. What makes this elegant is that the penalty isn't a simple on-off switch. It's a sliding scale.
What do you mean by sliding scale?
Imagine a fence that gets progressively harder to climb the closer you get to it. When the oval is far from an obstacle, the penalty is low. As it gets closer, the penalty rises sharply, and right at the boundary, it becomes almost impossibly high. This is handled by something called a log barrier function, which is just a mathematical tool that creates that kind of steep exponential wall. The result is that the character doesn't just avoid collisions, they actively steer away from them, gradually adjusting their posture as they approach tight spaces.
So the character starts leaning or angling their body before they even reach the gap?
Right. Because the trajectory planning and the animation selection are now coupled together, the character's body responds to the space as a single unified action, not as a path instruction followed by a separate animation. They lean into a doorway, they angle their shoulders through a corridor. It looks like a person navigating a space, not a puppet being moved through one.
That's a meaningful shift. But here's a practical concern. If you're running all these checks every single frame, doesn't that slow everything down to a crawl?
That's a fair concern, and the paper addresses it directly. The heavy environment search doesn't run every frame, it runs every few frames. In between, the system uses a technique called inertialization, which is essentially a smoothing method. Think of it like drawing a straight line between two poses and letting the character glide naturally from one to the other, rather than snapping abruptly. The result stays fluid, even though the full calculation isn't happening constantly.
And on top of that, they also have a smarter way to search through the animation data itself.
Yes, they use what they call a two-level hierarchical search. Think of it like a library. Instead of reading every book on every shelf to find what you need, you first check the section labels to find the right aisle. Then you look more carefully within that aisle. The system first checks a small set of representative animation frames to narrow down the likely candidates, then does a detailed comparison only within that shortlist. That cuts the search time significantly without sacrificing quality.
What about the data side of things? Do you need a massive motion capture library recorded specifically around obstacles?
That's one of the more practical findings in the paper. You don't. A single actor performing natural, varied locomotion is sufficient. And critically, you don't need to tag or label obstacles during the recording session. The system learns to navigate around obstacles it never encountered during capture, because the environment awareness is built into the search process, not baked into the data. The paper suggests a functional controller can be built in roughly 2 hours.
So the insight isn't record more data, it's ask smarter questions of the data you already have.
That's a good way to put it. By giving the system a mathematical sense of its own physical footprint, you allow it to solve navigation problems that previously required either enormous datasets or handcrafted labor-intensive tweaks for every new environment. The character simply reacts to the space, which is, after all, what people do.
It's a reminder that in animation and simulation, the most visible improvements often come not from more computing power, but from a cleaner way of framing the problem. Thanks for listening to ResearchPod.